If you're watching this video, you probably want an exotic car just like I do, but unfortunately exotics can be quite expensive. So taking a look at 5 in particular that all cost less than £20,000. Hit like if you want to see the same video again at a £10,000 instead. Subscribe if you're new. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Let's kick this video off with the Maserati Granturismo, which ticks so many of the exotic car boxes within our price range, given that it's an Italian sports car from a more premium brand with a Ferrari V8 engine and a Pininfarina design. It's literally an exotic car in every way except for its price and of course previous depreciation. It comes with a 4.2 litre V8 to be exact, which puts out 339 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5 seconds, the slowest car on the list then, but still fast enough to excite you out on a grand tour given that it's the ultimate purpose of this car. What Maserati are so good at is making a car that sounds incredible, and that's exactly what they did with the Gran Turismo, thanks to that Ferrari Maserati collab engine. You've probably seen that clip where Jeremy Clarkson is distracted by the sound of the Quattroporte, and it's easy to understand why when you hear the sound of any of these Ferrari engine Maseratis. And if you know your Maseratis well, you know this was actually originally going to be the Ferrari California. Ferrari ended up taking the original design for the Maserati Gran Turismo and used it for the California, leaving Maserati with no design for a car they'd already planned to be hitting the market. So Maserati had to hustle to produce this car, literally setting the record for the fastest time for a car to go from design to production, so the fact that it looks so good is a testament to their success. And as a car, it has a real focus on being a pretty Grand Tourer, and though its boot is smaller than some of its Grand Touring rivals, it makes up for it by having a lovely looking interior, even if it has been questioned for build quality on occasion. I know a group who do an annual European road trip in these, and every year it looks like utter motoring heaven. They'll run you around £18,000 the bottom end, with our 20k limit being enough for a 2008 model with 40,000 miles on it. Despite their reputation, these aren't typically considered to be too bad on reliability. Replacement parts can be more expensive than many rivals, and as I mentioned, there have been plenty of build quality related issues as well. Look for one with a good service history for peace of mind. Next up, we have a car that sadly recently has fallen off of my personal radar, the Jaguar F-Type. It's an absolutely stunning Grand Tourer with great performance, a nice interior and a very exotic overall look, but as JLR cars have gone crazy on insurance, the F-Type has become more difficult to own. This has however reflected in prices, as today you'll find them listed anywhere from around £18,800, and there are quite a few available for under 20k from around 2015 with 70k on the clock. For that kind of money, you'll actually be able to get into an S model, which means you get a 3-litre supercharged V6 engine producing 374 brake horsepower, which you get to 60 in 4.8 seconds, slightly quicker than the Maserati. I mentioned insurance, it's worth actually talking about that for a moment. I'm 28 years old with over 10 years of no claims, living in London, and I can get insured on an Aston Martin DB9 for around £600 per year, an Alfa Romeo 4C for around £500 per year, and a Lamborghini Gallardo for around £700 per year. So it's crazy to think that with the F-Type I'm getting quotes in the region of £1,300 instead. This is largely because of the issues with Range Rovers being stolen so often, but the problem with insurance is if they start to view a manufacturer as providing them with expensive insurance claims to pay out, they're mostly so risk averse they'll stop insuring for those manufacturers, leading to a lack of supply of insurance and therefore higher prices. I've actually not seen it to these levels before though, so do let me know in the comments if you've got more experience on this. But anyway, the F-Type remains a lovely car, and as I said, it is findable for under 20k in both S and non-S spec, with the non-S being slightly less powerful with some slightly less tweaked aesthetics too. You'll also get it in both convertible and coupe spec, though the former is usually cheaper, and though I don't rate it with the roof up, with the roof down, it's a beautiful looking car that would be great for long drives in summer. Leaking diffs, exhaust valves sticking, and a few other smaller build quality issues are the most notable ones on these, as large problems I wouldn't say are particularly common. Another British entry now in third on the list, the first generation Bentley Continental GT, which I'm sure most people who know cars know isn't worth an absolute fortune anymore, but still has a bunch of the makings of an exotic car. Probably its most exotic feature is its powertrain, a 6-litre twin turbocharged W12 engine, which makes 552 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.8 seconds, meaning it is the most powerful car on the list. This is the only car on the list though specifically built to be a luxury cruiser, so it comes with air suspension with 4 driving modes and all-wheel drive to keep the car cruising comfortably regardless of road conditions, plus of course the luxury interior. That interior is a lovely place to be, quite a timeless design. I see them today and they still look very good, and even some of the old school options like a car phone and the likes make it feel a bit more of a time capsule. Externally it's not a hugely shouty car, but it does have a bit of road presence, partially because it's quite big and partially because of course the Bentley Maserati badge. And even though interiors differ a lot, it's quite rare to see one on the roads without that typical external silver color or sometimes black. So if you're really focused on the exotic parts of this list, maybe look for something a little different, as within our price range I found some nice blue, red and even green ones. If you're looking at the upper end of our price range, going for a Mulliner example will help with this, as they came with a few more bespoke options for interior and exterior trim. That said, like resale red on a Ferrari, these are known to shift better in the more basic specs, so something to consider for selling the car in future. They'll run you around £10,500 at the bottom end nowadays, making it the cheapest car on the list, and 20k is enough to get you a 2005 model with around 50,000 miles on it. On reliability, they are genuinely not as bad as people say they are, with maintenance, parts and labour costing an absolute fortune if things do go wrong, but they're not known to be awful or anything like that. Instead, I'd watch out for the absurdly high running costs. So I hope you guys are enjoying this video. If you are, then do hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new. And I want to say Happy New Year to everyone, as this is my first video 2024, so thank you so much for watching. Do hit subscribe if you haven't already. It's going to be a great year. The Porsche 911 is one of the most well-known shapes in the entire sports car world, which makes sense since it hasn't changed much in terms of the aesthetic concept since the early days in the mid-1960s, so it might not turn heads today in the same way as some of the other exotic cars on this list. But I think a clean 911 997 Carrera S shouldn't be slept on as a cheap exotic with insanely cool looks, price, and most importantly, dynamics. They come with a 3.8 litre flat 6 engine which produces 350 brake horsepower, taking them to 60 in 4.6 seconds, not bad for a car of its age. The 997 is the 6th generation 911, and for me is one of the most 911 looking 911s, if that makes any sense to you. By that I mean not super wide like the new 992 generation, and not controversial visually in any other way. If I drew a 911 on a piece of paper, it would look like a 997. In terms of what S means on top of the Carrera, it's basically a bit of extra power, 29 brake horsepower to be exact, plus a bunch of other features like the larger engine, lowered suspension with adjustable dampers, 19-inch alloys, a slightly upgraded set of brakes, sports exhaust, upgraded headlights, and some aluminium trim on the interior. So if you'd happily miss any of that, you could just go down the Carrera route instead, though the used Porsche world is effectively driven by badges these days. One major change I've not spoken about before in relation to the 997 was its interior. Where the 996 stepped away from Porsches of the past, the 997 was a return to classic Porsche interior stylings, which adds to my case that this is about as 911-y as it gets. Same story with the headlights, switching away from the different headlights chosen for the 996, this car was meant to make both modern Porsche and Porsche purists happy simultaneously. These are only around £16,500 at the bottom end, and under 20k we'll be looking at a model from around 2004 with 100k on the clock. The problem with the 3.8 block on the Carrera S is IMS bearing and bore scoring issues, but nowadays it's typically low risk, as many will have been replaced by worried owners. Taking the top spot on this list is a car that genuinely surprised me with 1, how great it was to drive, 2, how comfortable it was to live with, and 3, how much attention it garnered out on the roads. Again, like the Porsche, it might not be as shouty as the Granturismo or F-Type, given it's effectively a BMW coupe, but having cruised around in one, it definitely gives you a lot of the exotic experience to drive. They come with a 3-litre twin turbocharged inline-6 engine, which makes 424 brake horsepower, taking them to 60 in 4 seconds, which I can confirm personally is pretty rapid. This car of course picked up where the M3 coupe left off, but stepped back from using crazy engines which BMW were doing in the late 2000s to doing BMW's bread and butter, the inline-6. That has meant that from a reliability perspective, the E92 M3 to F82 M4 are complete night and day. Where the M3 was known for a plethora of issues, while the M4 has of course not been perfect, but much better in comparison. Common problems with it are around the valve cover with multiple known gasket leaks and crank hub issues on earlier models. But outside of those issues, these are thoroughly enjoyable, and even a manual snob like me loves shifting the DCT Automatica one with the paddle shift. The interiors are very much focused on comfort from my experience, and they come well equipped from an infotainment perspective with additional features like heads-up display and the likes. What's key about them though is that they are so spec dependent when it comes to how exotic they feel. There are some exterior colours which are far more shouty and some which are less so. I think personally they should definitely have a more shouty exterior given the way that they drive, but it's a matter of taste of course. They aren't quite as competent as the more aggressive competition models, but then for daily driving I don't think that's a major issue. And honestly my personal pick would be the convertible to really drive home the enjoyment factor in this car, though the coupe looks great too. They've recently dropped below the 20k mark with prices starting at around £18,500 and 20k getting your 2015 model with 100k on it. And that brings us to the end. Those are 5 cars you can buy for under £20,000 that are all pretty exotic. If you want to see some more exotic cars, then do click up here, subscribe as well down here. Huge thanks to you guys for watching, the patrons for their support, and I will see you in the next one.